things through every day when I wake up. If you, in short, if you are a member speaking, you have to assert yourselves, gentlemen. Come on, you are journalists, to be able to lobby before even make the budget. Say, if only you gave us this and this and this as incentives, we'll be able to do our job. And not only lobbying by making noise that you want incentives, you want duty-free importation of equipment, but show why you are important. And I've even told ministers here at one time, I said, you are a minister. Minister of Defense, go and make your case at the Minister of Finance. Minister of Agriculture, make your case so that you are given more allocation in the budget. So I know the fourth estate is journalists, media, and you are very, very important comrades, but you have got a duty to use your association, the various forms of association, Mr. Zambia, whatever. There are so many fraternities to which you belong. And you interview us, you meet the Minister of Information, you meet the Minister of Finance, tell them why certain goods should come in duty-free. I remember one meeting we had, the Minister of Energy was saying we're consuming too much energy on geysers. Why can't the Minister of Finance allow us to import geysers duty-free so that there are more geysers, with solar geysers that is, so that we stop using electricity on our geysers? And I think that was granted, I don't know, but this is exactly how you portray your needs in a profession. Daily Mail. Yeah, parts of the country really have no power for a long period, some longer than others, and I don't know why this is the case, because we all need to share. I can only ask ZESCO management why some areas don't get power restored in decent intervals. Otherwise, the most important question you've asked me is tariff increase. What's the GRZ position on cost-reflective tariffs? I've made it very clear myself that we need to encourage investment in the energy sector, and the only way we can do this is by having more and more investors in that sector, particularly in clean energy, renewable energy, solar energy, and the wind energy and the kind. If we do not have sufficient investment in the energy sector, we will not be able to produce enough, we will not be able to grow the economy, and in the end, we will just be going in circles, complaining. Government position is to encourage investment in the energy sector, and we're going to encourage investment in the energy sector by having people who are investing get a return on their investment. And the only way they can get a return on their investment is by having cost-reflective tariffs. And cost-reflective tariffs simply means you take into account what has gone into the production of the energy, and as you sell it, you put up a bid on it so that you don't kill the client who is the consumer of your product. What we are having now is ZESCO is getting power at a certain rate and selling it at a lower rate. How do you expect ZESCO to be sustainable? It's not possible. It doesn't make sense. We are tied into a lot of agreements which were signed, and I don't want to go into that area by other people before us, which shackled ZESCO from growth. And ZESCO cannot grow because they are getting electricity at a higher price and selling it cheaply. So with the new policy that we have put in place and the new amendments that we are putting to the legal framework pertaining to energy, we want to have cost-reflective tariffs. And obviously, you have to pay slightly more. Instead of having no electricity at all, we'd rather have people pay something more so that we continue having electricity than pay cheaply and end up having a complete blackout in the long run. And I'm sure that in implementing these cost-reflective tariffs, the people responsible, ERB, ZESCO, and others, will take into account the shock that comes with the steep rises overnight. They will graduate this to a certain point in time until we're able to reach those levels. I know that it's a difficult path, but I'd rather have some electricity in your homes, in your factories, than have none at all for fear of being accused of being insensitive to the needs of the people. If we say, no, we want electricity at the current rates, we'll have no electricity in future in this country. And even those who are importing, like we are importing now, will not feel like continuing to import and sell it to you cheaply. That's an unfortunate situation, but that's the reality.
Thank you, Excellency.
There is one on Zambia being in a state of national security or insecurity because people are not allowed to hold meetings. Just let me understand one thing. Don't we have a season when we can start campaigning and gathering and holding public meetings and rallies? Really, Zambia, are you saying we should be campaigning from 2016 to 2021? I tend to think that sometimes it calls for common sense. You can mobilize, yes, somehow as a political party, but are we going to have the frenzy that goes with campaigns during the last 3 months or 6 months of elections? Don't we have a season when we can begin doing these things? I think that let's focus on things which matter. And things which matter now is the economy. Things which matter now is the well-being of this country. Once in a while, yes, you can go and hold a public meeting. But what I'm seeing in Zambia is that we really lack fanfare. We lack, having fun. It can't be fun all the time. There are times when you have to say, let's go and work. So for me, if the police think it's not in order to allow these gatherings become the norm, they're perfectly within their right. But there is nothing to stop you from holding public meetings if you feel like. But speaking for myself, I'd rather focus on serious issues by going out there to do some work as opposed to galvanizing political support from 2016 to 2021. When are we going to work?
Thank you, Excellency. The next batch of 3, Mr. Frank Nduli.
And by the way, broadcasting equipment, I understand there was some duty rebate or duty free or something was done through the Ministry of Information. And that's why most of you now have radio stations and all these things. And I'm not lying.
Your Excellency, good afternoon, and thank you very much for this rare occasion. I'm Frank Mtsubila from a new talk radio which is being launched this month, the first talk radio, Capital FM. Your Excellency, as the longest serving media practitioner, I think I'm allowed to ask 2 questions.
Your station is new.
Your Excellency, I'll turn 15 in the media next year.
We appreciate that.
Seriously, Your Excellency, Zambia has been pursuing constitutional reforms for a long while now, and it would appear that even the current efforts through Bill number 10 will not manage to unite Zambians behind one widely accepted document. Are you considering any measures to bridge the gap between the two camps, those who support Bill 10 and those who do not? A quick second word, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, the country has not adequately benefited from the mining industries, apart from employment generation and getting dividends. Why can't the government consider a more beneficial economic method, say a reasonable percentage on production as against dividends? As a rider to that, why can't government increase its resource share in the emerald mining? And could you brief us, Your Excellency, on the current process related to KCM? Thank you, Your Excellency.
Mr. Chair, you allowed to do 5 questions.
Sorry, just before Kwame ZMBC. So much to go on.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Chagwa. I'm a freelance journalist. Mine is a follow-up on the Lower Zambezi mining issue, and we've heard that no mining will commence in that area. I just want to get an assurance from you that once due diligence is done, new license applications are made, what is your stance on this? Is there a possibility mining will commence, as well as your thoughts on large projects like these that have an adverse effect on the environment? Thank you, Your Excellency.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. My name is Mark Ziligone from the NBC. Your Excellency, I've got two questions for you. One, I would love to get it clear from you. Are you game for the 2021 general elections? And are you comfortable with the issues of you being the sole candidate? Because we've seen several party members and those you knew as the sole candidate for the 2021. The second question, Your Excellency, is we saw you reconciling with Honorable Kambwili recently, and later we saw him talk in the media. The question is, was this reconciliation really genuine? Thank you very much.
Let me start with the last question. What happened is that I went to church to remember my late president. I didn't know that Mr. Chimbakambwili was in the crowd. And the priest called me, and we shook hands. And the newspaper said we have reconciled. I was lamenting at that point. I was saying, but what have I done to be called for reconciliation? Because I've never differed with this gentleman. In short, I've got no issues with Chimbakambwili myself, save that he has offended some people, including members of my family, by calling me a thief, a corrupt person, and a drug dealer. And to cut a long story short, after the meeting, the priest saw it fit to call us in his office. And there, I told him what I've said. I said, well, you can't reconcile with me, even if the church wishes that to be the case, or supporters or the nation wants that to be the case, because I've got no issues with you. And it's you who has issues with me. So if you say I'm a thief, you should lay the evidence that I'm a thief, or I'm a corrupt person, I'm a drug dealer. If I was a private citizen, I would have sued you. Those were my words. And then I promised the father that I will not talk about this matter, because his response to my position was that he's suffering. His family and the businesses have suffered. And I told him, I said, the family and businesses and interests are suffering because of your mouth. And I explained further by saying that your mouth is so negative that people who want to work with you fear that they'll be perceived to be supporting your cause. And so some of them have been withdrawing business association and interest with you. It's not to do with me, because I know what it means to suffer blackout or sanctions in that manner. So I don't know whether you can say that was a reconciliation or not. And I've spoken the way things happened. After that, we left. So whether there is reconciliation or not, I'd rather reconcile with everybody. But you make peace with yourself first. Find out whether what you are saying is truthful or not. If not, retract. And I even went further and I said, look, GBM reconciled, truthfully. Because he went public and said he's sorry about it and so on. The mayor of Lusaka, we reconciled because he went public and said, look, I want to work with you, I'm sorry. And he did this not in the bedroom of my house or the privacy of State House, but he went public. It was the public who are affected by these things. So I think that's where we are, Mr. Zirigon. Come 2021, am I the sole candidate? I'm just a sponsored candidate of PF. And I cannot determine how PF wants to run its race to 2021. And the Central Committee, the General Conference are all organs of the PF. So if the PF chooses to go this route or that route, I'm ready to play game. I'm game, in short. For me, I'm a Democrat. How many times have I been fought by way of contestation? So many. I think I can say I'm a champion of democracy as a person, and PF is the leading player in democracy. So we will go to the conference if that will be the wish of the party, and I'm game, in short. Yeah. Zambezi Lower. Lower Zambezi is an interesting story, but I'm sure it will be put to rest soon. A position has been taken by government. The minister spoke to this only yesterday. He was in Parliament elucidating more information and making it clear. I don't know what you want me to say about it. For the future, the position is very well known. In game parks, we have got the law governing development of projects in game parks. We have got the law also governing mining. And in the end, the two should be looked at seriously so that we don't breach the law and damage the environment. Personally, I don't want to go into the history of what happened, but going into the future, let me assure you, my dear Sister Kwangu, that projects of this nature require serious thinking through. They require public discussion with stakeholder groups. You sit down with informed people and those who are going to be affected by these projects in their locality so that you get views whether these projects should be implemented in their areas or not. And I can tell you that during the campaigns in 2015, 2016, this issue of mining in Lower Zambezi was a very strong one amongst the people there. They were saying, we want the mines now. We have been promised that this mine will give us jobs and so on. I wasn't president then in 2015. I said, I hear you, Your Royal Highness, I hear you. But the owners there want jobs. The villagers want jobs. That's what they were telling me in 2015, 2016. But I don't know whether they were informed or not informed. That's why I'm saying public hearings should be the basis upon which you determine whether a project should be taken on or not. And the public hearing should not be a preserve of the traditional leaders and the local people, but should be also attended by experts who know, who will be able to tell you the consequences of taking certain projects. I'm told that mining now can be smart mining, they're calling it, in terms of effluent discharge, toxic waste and so other things. There are people who are talking, supporting, and those who are against. So without being informed by technocrats, experts, and environmentalists and all, we'll have a problem. So for the future, I would like government to consult more before engaging on such projects. That's the long and short I can give of your question. The veteran asked 5 long questions. I'll try as hard as I can to give you the answers that I may have now. 2 camps have emerged as a result of the constitutional reform through Bill number 10. What are these 2 camps? I know that you're talking about PF and UPND. Are they the only camps? No. Governance is about consensus and compromise. You build consensus around an issue, and once you succeed, you move forward. There are those stubborn lords who say we will not move. As far as we are concerned, we're not going to move. Those you leave behind and move on. Otherwise, even the freedom struggle in this country had its own detractors amongst the indigenous people with black skin like myself. But the current people like Dr. Kaunda and others said, we are going this direction, and that's why we are here. So we did consult extensively through the National Dialogue Forum, and our friends on the other side chose not to participate, and if they choose not to participate in Parliament, and we have the numbers, we'll proceed. Because that is what it means to govern. And when this thing works out, everyone will claim, oh, well done, Twali Bomba. But that's the nature of human beings. They sometimes oppose because they don't like your face, sometimes because they don't think you deserve being there, all sorts of petty reasons. So Bakalamba, don't worry, we're in charge, and we're going to make sure that we bring in as many views as possible. You know that Parliament makes laws, but we went outside Parliament in a quest to bring in as many interest groups as possible, stakeholder groups as possible. But typical to our friend's character, they say, no, we're not coming. So what do you do with such people? You leave them behind and you move on. And you don't feel guilty about it. But if they choose to come along in Parliament and debate, voila, we'll hear them. We'll hear them. But we'll not gloat and say we have won, because there is no winner or loser in this game. We have managed to move the Constitution to a level where probably it will be less contentious. You benefit from the mining industries. Yes, I think we have been grappling with the best way of getting benefits from the mining industries. One of the things I've proposed is the percentage on production. Unless we have a mechanism of monitoring production, we'll be cheated, just like we've been cheated before. So, for me, a question like this is one which we should interrogate in the light of what we already have in place. Is it giving us value, a return on the industry, or not? The same, we've debated the VAT and sales tax. In the same manner that we debated, we'll debate all formulas which can be brought to our table to see how we can maximize on our returns on that natural asset which is wasting, which God has given us. But you need to know that as we negotiate and talk to these mining companies, they also have got a position, and we discuss, dialogue, negotiate, and ultimately arrive at what we think will give us a win-win situation where the mines will operate sustainably, jobs will be created, taxes will be paid, corporate social responsibility activities will take place, and so on and so forth. Because we don't want to kill the chicken that is laying the golden egg. It's a very dicey situation. But all I can assure you is that we will continue exploring various formulas which may work to our advantage, but also not killing the industry. And I know that probably that's why some of these strategies have not been adopted in the past. You saw how we labored on the VAT and sales tax. It was a heated battle. Some of you were with us in the trenches as we said we want to go the sales tax way, but others were on the other side. But through dialogue, we eventually had to reverse. So it's not too late. Budgets are coming and going every year, and you are Zambian, you are at liberty to engage us to ensure that those brilliant ideas you have do not go to waste. We should tap into your knowledge. Emerald industry, for example, is one area in which we would like to have as many Zambians as possible operate, but what we have are Zambian speculators in the majority. So for us, we set up Kajem as a Zambian people. Later, obviously, our equity was diluted and would like to regain our shares in there. IDC has been looking at how we can expand our involvement in the emerald industry. And also, the Minister of Mines has been encouraging people to see how they can participate in this industry through cooperatives, and also support from banks in terms of equipment and machinery for operation. But the mines require a lot of equipment, and very few banks are willing to support indigenous Zambians in the mining sector. And that has been a problem. How many Zambians run mines of their own in the copper industry? None. Probably small-scale gold mining now, small-scale emerald now, but we would like to have a day when Zambians, men and women, own a mining house of their own. But this can only happen if the banks are willing to support them. And the banks also decide what products they would like to support. Talk about this, you can compare the Nigerian entrepreneurs. Nigerian banks have supported the local people. That's why we have the Dangotes coming as far as Zambia and other parts in the region, because they've been supported by their banks. Until our banks in Zambia, whether they're international or local, based in Zambia, begin supporting us, we'll continue being engineers in the mines, but just a worker, a director in the mine, but just a worker, and so on. That's the sad situation. I'm not going to talk more because the Minister of Commerce and Industry has been challenged with this matter, and I'm sure he's prodding banks to come to the table. KCM, oh yes, thank you, Kalam. KCM is a matter we are monitoring very, very closely. It's in court, as you very well know, and I don't want to talk about court processes lest I'm cited for contempt. We will wait for the courts to determine the matter. On our part, we are keeping a very critical eye to ensure that nothing goes wrong. And if there was no law in this country, we would have finished this matter of liquidation of this company. But the law is slow, and sometimes you have to be very, very resolute when you're going to the law. Otherwise, you can be frustrated, but I must assure you we will not be frustrated because we know what we are doing. And if the idea is to protract this matter to the furthest so that we break down and we fail to reach our ultimate resolve, we will not relent. We will wait until the court finishes the process. And again, we don't want to be seen to be fighting the court by saying the court is too slow, because courts, the wheels of justice grind very slowly, that you know. But when they grind fine. We want also to be seen to be respecters of the rule of law. You see, we're between the rock and the hard place here. If we go in there and say, get out, all the investors who have come to Zambia will be unsure of their continued safety and future. They will be saying, hey, these guys can just wake up one morning and say you're out. They will use a fake liquidation process and you're out. So we need to inspire confidence to the investors, both locally and those who come from outside, so that they appreciate that Zambia is a country of laws, and no matter how dictatorial the guy in State House is, he will not get away with breaking the law. That is where we are. Thank you very much.
Discussion is here. Imon Desanis and Joseph Mendes.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency.
Good afternoon.
I come with the voice of the voiceless, the people in the high density area, representing Congo Radio. Your Excellency, as much as we appreciate the good job that the government is doing, from the speech that's
it is most appreciated by the land. But we need to look at the people who represent the masses who are in the high density areas. For them, everything else right now would be on hold because their major outcry is power. Your Excellency, you talked about this person in Masala running a saloon and the Baba or a warrior. For them, the power issue is really hitting them hard. There are markets that have been put in place and they're supposed to pay certain market levels. Each and every day, they're supposed to pay the same fee, regardless of whether power is there or not. Your Excellency, sometimes power will come only 2 hours, and still, probably the council will pass through and request the same amount they're supposed to pay. The bus driver will also be affected because people would know, they have the schedules. They will go certainly at a certain time to do their marketing and all that. Yet still, the cashing will be the same. I know this is not a platform to lobby, but sometimes it gives us no choice because certain people, like in the high density areas, their voice will fall on deaf ears. Your Excellency, how do we help these people? Because come next year, rentals are going up, regardless that there's no power. We should accept that there's no productivity in the country. It is being lessened by the outages, 15 hours, we are all feeling it. But more so, that one person in the high density area who only has a little bit of money to raise through a small business of which you have empowered them in the markets and still being levied. They're practically working for the levy. How do we help them, Your Excellency?
Well, I don't know whether that was a question or
We want to know how we're going to help them. What do we do?
I thought
What measures do we put in place? Because if council will still demand the same amount.
Thank you. We're not all about the disapproval. I know how passionate you feel. You should go with me. Then you'll see how passionate I feel. Because I know from the background of the people you're talking about, I know what's happening out there. Now, you see, when things like this happen, it is time for people to come together and say, are we going to continue demanding the same business as usual rates? That's why we need the voice of the voiceless, not only on radio, but to talk to the drivers, to talk to the owners of the buses, to say we're not able to cash. To talk to the council, to tell them, no, we cannot continue getting the same levies that we've been getting because the markets are not operating at the same level. Where are the voices of the people? Where are the representatives of the people? It's you and me. But the question is, do we reach out to the owners of these institutions, the council, for example? I think that you're on firm ground in terms of worrying about our people. These are the people who matter to us because they are the ones who put us in office and the ones who get us out of office. But we have to find a channel of getting their plight addressed. And the plight can only be addressed by reaching to the stakeholder groups who are involved in the matter so they get to appreciate. Because Miles Sampa and his council is one of us. You go there and say, Mr. Councillor, Your Worship, the Mayor, is Lusaka City Council going to continue levying marketeers at the same rate, given that business has gone down? Because certainly, they are our employers. The council, councillors, and all these people are our employers. They are bound to reflect and come with a compromise, like I've said. But thank you for bringing up these lamentations. We'll dismiss this as a question, but we'll share the concerns from Compound Radio. So I'll still get 3 more questions.
Your Excellency, my name is Henry Himonde from Zambian News and Information Services. There's been continued confusion related to markets and bus stations allegedly by political cadres. This is with regard to the management of these facilities. Now my question is maybe to put this matter to rest. Who is in charge of these facilities and what is government doing to address this challenge? Maybe related to this, last year we faced a cholera outbreak in the country which claimed a lot of lives, maybe in hundreds. We saw defense forces going into town to clean up the city, which was done. But however, a year or so down the line, we have seen street vendors coming back into the streets of Lusaka, conducting business as usual. Now, what is government doing to address this challenge? And I would also want to find out what has been done with the account that was opened to construct some designated markets around the city. Thank you.
Very good afternoon, Your Excellency. My name is Stuart Gisulu, representing Newsletters newspapers. Our question really is on the Constitutional Court ruling which compelled former ministers to pay back monies illegally accrued in 2016 after Parliament was dissolved. The last communication we had from your office was that you were consulting technocrats to interpret this ruling. Our question, sir, is why are you subjecting the Court judgment for further consultation, yet you consider a judgment from the same court over your 2021 eligibility final and unquestionable? And what has Zambia benefited from the Commission of Inquiry on the 2016 election violence, seeing as the findings have not yet been made public? And we would like to just say one more thing, Your Excellency. If you could be so kind to use this occasion to free our comrade Derek Singela, who has been incarcerated for 90% of his jail sentence. Thank you, sir.
Let me just say it's now a question per person. Jeff, Masha.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. My name is Jeff Kapimwa. I write for the Southern Times and Netos Plus. Your Excellency, I have one or three questions, but I'll restrict to one. Mine is to do with refugees. Recently, you met the UNHCR Commissioner, where you expressed willingness to have refugees in anticipation that there would be reciprocity. My worry as a Zambian is that while we are willing to have more refugees, the comprehensive refugee framework, where donors are supposed to put in money in the basket, it's not being filled in. The question is, with the meager resources, how long shall we sustain the refugee program? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Your Excellency, and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lungu from Mani FM. So I'm just wondering, as we are talking about empowering the local communities, why you have decided to take 44 million kwacha to South Africa to import power when you're still owing a lot of money to your own local independent power producers? And wouldn't you consider putting in place regulation to allow independent power producers to distribute directly to their customers, and then also reduce, the cost on ZESCO that will allow them to export power and in turn, free up the grid, strengthen the currency, and bring in the much needed foreign currency for Zambian US dollar that we need. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Doris, we were asking more than one question.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. First of all, on behalf of my colleagues, we want to thank you for this platform that you've given us. I think this is the first time. And I want to ask my colleagues, please join me. Just a short hand of clap. Secondly, Your Excellency, I want to unreservedly commend the PF government for the football development agenda from the time the PF came into government. 2012, the government of PF won the 2012 AFCON for the first time in the history of Zambian football. Then, Mr. President, don't worry, I'm giving you a background to understand. You don't say good things to good situations. Then, Mr. President, PF won the COSAFA at the senior squad. Thirdly, Mr. President, the under 20 boys in 2017 won the Africa Cup. 2019, Mr. President, the under 17 boys won the COSAFA in Malawi. So under the football development agenda of the Patriotic Front government, it is only fair that all soccer-loving Zambians must say thank you, because when we see this happening under your leadership, Mr. President, then we know that the present and the future is great. The concern, Mr. President, of the soccer fans from Mansabonge to Livingstone, from Chipata to Namshakeni, on an issue of the national team coach, Mr. President, the soccer fans are saying, Marsha, we know you as a Chagwa bowler, the name given by late President Michael Sata, and I accepted that. So people have said, please inform the patron that after 55 years of Zambia's independence, surely do we need a foreigner to teach our boys? And yet, Mr. President, in 1988, there was no foreign coach. Sansu Munjo, Fred Mwela, Boniface Mtowe, Dixon Magwasa, Dick Chama, and Godfrey Chitaru took Zambia to the quarterfinals of the Olympics, Mr. President. And therefore, this is a concern. It's not a question. It's a concern from the soccer fans. We need our own Zambian coaches to be trained by the Football Association of Zambia in collaboration, Mr. President, with the Ministry of Sports. We need Zambians. 5 Zambians. Thank you, sir.
So passionate. We appreciate you, Masha Jelevina. We appreciate you. Let me tackle these questions first, because I think I took more notes than probably the questions. I don't know. But you see, the rules, the statutes of FIFA do not allow government to interfere with football. And at one time I was coming from Ndola, where I had gone to watch football, and somebody asked me the same question. I said, well, I'd rather do with a local coach. And then they went ahead and hired a foreign coach who didn't do any better. If you are going to ask for my honest personal opinion, we can train Zambians to run football for us, and we can do as good, if not better, than some of these foreigners being hired. But I don't want to be seen to be interfering. The association, the Football Association of Zambia, is more competent to discuss that. Only lately, FAZ had trouble with the Zambia Revenue Authority over tax, and they came running to the ministry, and the minister joked and said, "Today you have come to talk to us. Isn't this interference?" So there's a thin line between interference and the participation. So I hope that they've heard your sentiments, Mr. Chilemena, those who are in charge, and will take note. Football is a religion in Zambia, second to I don't know second to what, but it's a second activity which most Zambians participate in. I will share these sentiments with the Minister of Finance, of Sport, and also my colleagues in FAZ to see how about that without seemingly to be seen to be interfering. Local communities, $44 million US to import energy. I think I did mention that we would like to have more and more players in the energy production sector. Local communities are also most welcome. And these independent power producers sign agreements with ZESCO as an off-taker. And this is where we have a problem. Because when they come in to say they will produce power, the price that they quote are not as attractive. So ZESCO declines because we want to get electricity produced and sold competitively. So if you're an independent power producer, whether you're local or foreign, you should be able to be competitive. If you're competitive, ZESCO will agree, whether it's solar or hydro or wind or whatever, that's what happens. So right now, I can tell you that there are negotiations which were held between some of these end users desiring to import energy directly themselves, and I don't know how far they've gone. I'm talking about the mines here who are big consumers and others. So it's a thing which can be discussed between ZESCO and the end users, whether these independent power producers can use ZESCO to whip their power to the end users and get paid. These are things which we should be negotiating. And if you may wish to know, we passed a number of statutes for amendments to Parliament on Monday in Cabinet. Some of them were intended to open this market because previously the Electrification Act, the Electricity Act, and all these, the ERB Acts, they were working against the industry. So once these go to Parliament, I hope you people will support through your members of Parliament so that we free this industry, make it competitive, so that our people are able to participate, including local people, and produce cheaply electricity, which will run in our homes and industry at a reasonable amount. That is all I can say on this, my dear sister. Incidentally, you carry my sister's name. Mr. Kapembwa, you know, what do you call these? Refugees never choose to be refugees. So even tomorrow or today, you or me can become a refugee. And when you are a refugee, you expect God Almighty to prevail on your host to look after you. Very few of you know that Jesus was how we can help them. You cannot be saying, no, I've received visitors, and these visitors were not prepared for. It's a humanitarian issue, but I don't have anything to give them, therefore. You go around saying, I've got these visitors, and I feel in my heart of hearts that I should look after them. What can you do to help the country? And you're asking those people to say, help us, because tomorrow it will be us helping you, and so on. This United Nations family is an organization which is based on bringing humanity where there is none, bringing development where there is none. The dignity and the pride of being a human being should be restored. So we are very proud to host our friends. And even if we may not have money, we would share the little that we have. But we also ask our friends, those who are willing to help, to do so. And if they can't help for some reason, tough luck. And we just hope that this situation of being a refugee will not be forever. These people can be restored back to their homes, and we are happy that the region is now encouraging peace-building processes in Congo DR, and a good number of people are going back to their countries. The most interesting one, Mr. Isulo, is the Constitutional Court ruling on ministers. This question has been exercising my mind, but the court said you worked illegally. So the minister asked me, so if we worked illegally, the benefits of our work, who enjoyed them? The Zambian people. You mean there is no principle of law which says we should be paid for the work done? I don't know. I don't want to be at loggerheads with the state or the courts of law. I respect them so much because of my background as a lawyer, and I know that we should not question some of these decisions, but this one is being questioned. And we are really thinking hard. As I was coming here this morning, somebody was saying, so those agreements we signed, are they invalid because we're in office illegally? And I say that's a jurisprudence question that is a very complicated one. It's not for me. So it is something we want to do. And I don't think we want to go back to court and ask, what are we returning back? Because it's very complex. And this man says, is it okay if we sued you, Mr. President, for making us work illegally? I said, yes, go ahead. But I will seek indemnity from the Attorney General because work was done for the Republic of Zambia, which comes to the same thing, that money will come from the state. So for me, when you ask me, you just confuse me because I wish we could pay back the money and end this one. But from what I'm seeing, that's why the delay has taken place in terms of consultation. Right now, we are trying to say, can we go to court so that the court can tell us which payments will be returned? Is it the full salary or the allowance you got when you went to negotiate for that loan? Is it also included? And little things. We are, for goodness sake and good order's sake, assuring the nation that this matter has been very active on our part. It's not as simple, as straightforward as saying Edgar Lungu is eligible to stand in 2021. This is more complex because there are people who are out of our control now, who are no longer ministers, and we cannot say we are going to deduct from your salary because the court has ordered that you surrender that money. Some of them are our enemies and they're saying, let me know how much so that I return the money. But who will tell them? Me? I don't know how much is supposed to be returned. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, this is not out of disrespect for the courts of law, but it has caused more questions than answers. And we are looking for answers. And if it calls for us to go to court and let the court guide us, we will do so. Not that we want to harass the court or show disrespect to the courts. The example given was that we respected the ruling that I'm eligible for 2021. As much as I am a beneficiary of that decision, if I was affected by the ruling that I'm in power wrongly, I should return the money. I would have loved to know how much the decisions I made, the cabinet sittings that we sat with those colleagues of mine, are they invalid? And so on. So these are questions, but let's forget about decisions we made, but let's find out whether they should work for nothing. Sinjela should be freed. I don't know. He insulted the courts, eh? Allegedly, he insulted the courts. Is this a gentleman? Yes. Okay. You know, these matters are a bit tricky. I had his name on my list just the other day. I'll think about him in the future. And I hope he hasn't saved substantially his term. When is he supposed to come out? December. This year? Anachoka kudala huyu. Anachoka kudala huyu. With remission, you know, they give remissions. So, mzamu unatabia bwela kwa nyumba manje. I'll find out. It's not a very good place to be in there. He was classified as a media, as our journalist in jail, and they attributed that to me. Then I followed up the matter. I said, it's not me, it's the state. The state is bigger than the executive. So, yeah, twala likonkeliasha. Right.
Was the question on market?
Huh?
Was the question on market?
Oh yes, by Mr. Himonde. Yeah, you see, I was looking at the Markets and Bus Stations Act, and I was wondering why that law has not been operationalized over a long period of time. It is not a law which came with PF, it's a law which we found. But on our part, we want to give it a lease of life by blowing in the right atmosphere. Markets are supposed to be run by marketeers, there are committees and bus stations and so on. That's the answer to who is in charge. But what has happened is that the marketeers themselves and the councils have let their space be occupied by, for want of a better term, political cadres. And I can tell you that the environment at Markets under these political cadres is not the best that one can encounter. The marketeers are harassed, the commuters are harassed, the clients are harassed. In the end, the local authorities have lost it. So right now, the Ministry of Local Government, the Ministry of Home Affairs are working together trying to restore sanity in these markets, because it is not only in PF strongholds, as some people would like to believe, it's countrywide. Where UPND flex muscles as the strong party of the area, they do the same. Where PF is the party of choice, they do the same. But we'd like to bring this to an end. And this has been well received by a good number of well-meaning Zambians. But unfortunately, there are some who haven't received it well. And we will be talking to them to show that they can do other things. And we should also look for alternatives for them, as opposed to having them posture as party cadres and harass people in the name of the party, be it PF or UPND. It doesn't go down well with the people. Corridor versus street vending, this is an area where the local authorities should put its house in order. And the street vending per se is not supposed to be hazardous if managed properly. Elsewhere we see vendors on the streets, but they are managed, they know where to throw waste, and they know which areas. And let me give credit to the Lusaka City Council for attempting to manage street vendors by saying you can street vend from certain time of the day to certain time of the day in a given street. That's a good start, but let's see how it's working. There are a lot of people who live off the streets without being criminals. So I think we should give a chance to such people. But those who are on the criminals and who are on the streets and are criminals, we should flush them out. That's all I can say to this question. Corridor is not something pleasant, and we don't need to keep bringing in soldiers every year to come and maintain our streets. The lesson we learned was good enough. The Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Local Government have worked together to clear the cities for us. Let's not go back to that. The challenge again is on the local authority. If they have got difficulties with street vending, let us know. And as I talk about street vending, I've said those who earn a living on the streets decently without breaking the law should be allowed somehow by the council, making it possible for them to trade without being a nuisance in terms of waste management, in terms of harassing innocent people, because the jobs are not enough anyway. Not even in advanced economies are jobs enough for everybody. There are those who are on the fringe and on the outside who deserve sympathy and understanding. You know, I keep shuddering when I see council policemen chasing these people like criminals, and I say one day when a vehicle runs over one of these people who will be in serious trouble, because he's not a criminal, she's not a criminal to warrant that kind of ferocity in apprehending them for whatever crime they've done. When you grab them, you get their merchandise, you eat, you can even see you eating. All that does not go down very well for us. And that's why we are saying councils should own the council, the districts, the townships, and do the right things. Provide alternatives. They're trying to do that in Lusaka, and will continue that way. Thank you.
Excellency, there was a question on violence, commission of violence.
I don't know whether you covered as well, ladies and gentlemen, when we received the report from Judge Lisimba. I said that that report should be made available immediately. And I think subsequently I also gave instructions to SC. I said, SC, can we release that document. There's nothing to hide there but lessons to be learned. And I think we will release that document if you haven't seen it. I sanctioned its release. Some names, of course, were mentioned, and there's no harm in reading those names because they were mentioned on both sides of the combatants. And whether the names were mentioned by way of fake news or whether it's actionable, I will leave it to others.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It's now time for His Excellency to meet you. And those who are still trying to ask questions, maybe as he goes through the
The questions were asked by the veteran Frank Mutubila. He asked all the questions.
So, Your Excellency, just before that happens, everybody had come to the closer. We'd just like this to be as orderly as possible. So we just like less, hiding of His Excellency by those who surround him. Please take your position now, and so that when His Excellency moves to the next table, there's also clear, way for them to take their pictures. So if we're all okay, His Excellency will come to your table. Please, let's make it as clear and simple, less crowded. Your Excellency, the media for you. So it's coming to you, please exchange notes. So please do stay in your position. His Excellency is coming to you. After the President meets all of us, we request that Ms. Zambia comes to give us a vote of thanks, a very short vote of thanks. It will be followed by the national anthem, and the President will then have a photo session, and that will close and wrap up the program. So please, so far so good, do stay in your position. He's coming to your table. I'm sure that you have a brief moment with the President. With each table the President visits, there's more raindrops coming, so this must be a special day.
And you know, I was surprised just the other day. I encouraged can you syndicate some of the programs on this private television and radio and so on? He did say this interview on one of the channels, private channels, and I told no, people don't do that, and that's why you make business with private. We stop. We stop. You know, we feel good to share business.
Your Excellency, I know that you do this when you're meeting other ministers and other well-wishers and people that are in your realm, but we're journalists. Everything you say is quotable.
Yeah.
facing the table. Come, just come here.
Okay.
Get closer.
Okay.
Don't leave your table to follow the President's tour. Please stay on your tables to give others a chance to interact with the President.
I tell you, that is like a prison. Firstly, the presidency is like a prison. And when you go there, you try to be yourself, they tell you, you can't do this, you can't do that.
Once you leave your table, please stay
I've diluted the
where you are. Thank you.
Too free, I should be sombre. And all the time, like, but I find it very difficult because of my nature.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President, for giving us
No, thank you so much. You spoke well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so
Who
much.
supports you? Thank you. There's no money to support you. You tell them you need it.
Okay.
You are too young.
Thank you so much. Can I just
Including customers. So the streets are open. Yeah. How often does it come out? Every week. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Who supports you?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your patience. His Excellency is coming to your table. Thank you for keeping it orderly and nice.
Yeah. So you do that very well. I hear some of the local languages very well.
This is Mr. Zambia.
Okay.
Yes.
How are you?
Okay.
How is Mr. Zambia?
Mr. Zambia is okay.
Very good.
Yes, please.
We are happy that Mr. is coming active again.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I used to be a lawyer for Mr. Zambia long time ago.
Oh, okay.
During those days, I think Frank came, I was already there. Then I was once a very good friend of the media.
Oh, okay.
Very good friend.
You should continue.
I'm still a very good friend, but I've seen differently now.
Oh,
So, okay, you just stay at your table. We're coming.
Working together to promote partnerships, good governance and accountability to an open and transparent society underpinned by media freedom.
We are trying.
This is basically what
We're giving you ads.
this has been this afternoon.
But what we are hearing in Parliament is that we are not disagreeing
The President continues to meet the media. He's coming to your table. Please do stay where you are. Thank you.
Keep business. But when that parliamentarian student says, people don't watch that NPC, that's why you were trying to interview on that private channel. I said, no, no. So, I think the people who speak for you should be fair to us. Because if they continue,
After the meet and greet, we will have a quarter session.
when we mean well,
yeah, so we also
I hope they were not speaking for you.
No, on their own. Yeah, we also want to meet you as media private.
That's why you are here.
No, at the second time.
Okay, no, he will organize.
Yeah, there are issues of top star versus us. So we were trying to make quite. Our friends in other countries are giving something to run that business.
Already, but we cannot run with that NBC.
Okay, sorry.
That was very insulting. I was very
Okay, excuse
So
me.
let's make an appointment.
No, we will find time. But I was very upset when
Okay, sorry, we're coming here.
How
We're waiting to greet you.
are you?
So if you just stand here, then it's better.
Happy to see you. Okay.
That's not
Why don't you get in front? Capture in front.
Let's go to two. Cut the swing. Start again. No, just cut and stop it. Open the zip. And stop.
Stop it.
Yes.
I should stop it.
Yes, correct.